Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Scott?
Yeah.
Scott?
Hello.
No, you just moved your microphone away a little bit.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Can you tell me, is this the first podcast since the last podcast?
Yeah, hold on a minute. Bruce, is this the first podcast since the last podcast?
Let me check the references. Yes, Scott, it is the first podcast since the last podcast.
Lionel, it is.
Okay, and we already heard our guest laughing, so we'll just might as well introduce him right off the bat. This is, after 2 long months, I believe this may be the end of the Mike Bay 47-part trilogy. I think tonight might be it.
Tonight's the night?
Tonight's the night, I believe.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, well, we've been there.
We got all sorts of tunes in here now. Yeah.
There's 2 episodes a month, and you were the 2 episodes in March and the 2 episodes in April, and here we are now. And my birthday has come and gone. Nothing. I got nothing from you.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
And Bruce, you didn't get anything either. Right?
I didn't get anything from him either. My birthday's before yours, so.
Yeah, exactly. Like today is April the 19th, so I mean, my birthday was 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Well, actually, I did get some. I didn't get anything from Mike, but I did get a present from my son and his girlfriend for Christmas. We went and saw the Tigers play the Blue Jays on my birthday.
Oh yeah? When did the season open?
April 1st was opening day, and but they got us tickets, and I was down there at the. I'm gonna get it. It's Rogers Center. We use Sky Rogers Center now. That
yeah.
On the 13th to watch the Tigers and Jays in action.
That was a hell of a game too.
Oh, it's a great game. It was a great game.
Yeah, and Tigers, of course, are your team, and
they are my team.
And back in March, I saw the Tigers and the Jays playing in Lakeland, Florida.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Spring training. They got a great stadium.
What's your opinion? I know when we went to the minor league game at Comstock, they had the timer going on, the pitch clock going, and I thought it was good. And then what I saw in spring training and so far is it's really speeded up the game, and I think it's great. But I hear a lot of people whinging and whining about the fact that the pitcher's got to get rid of a ball in 20 seconds.
I think it's a no-brainer to speed up the game. 20 seconds
absolutely.
Is plenty. 20 seconds is plenty of time.
Yeah, it's that prevents the guys from looking there and stepping on, adjusting his cup, adjusting his gloves and everything, and then stepping back in and then not liking it. And so I it's a great idea. That the game times are way down.
Yeah, exactly. It is a good idea. What do you, Mike? Do you like any sports?
I'm not much of a sports follower, but baseball's always been my favorite.
Oh yeah,
I love going to a baseball game. I can't say that I follow it really very well. I mean, the season as a whole,
right?
But it's always a great time. And when I travel, I do make a point to try to go. If I'm in a city during baseball season and haven't been to that stadium, I definitely try to make a point to go.
Otherwise, you try to go to Coors Field in Denver and watch the Rockies play, do you?
I've only ever been to Coors Field once.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, as long as I've lived here.
I've
been to many other places more than that.
You're a total anomaly. I don't really like baseball. But, when I travel, every time I travel, if I have I try to get to the local baseball stadium.
It's fun.
Well, of course it's fun. You don't really follow it, but one of your main things is to go out onto the station, go to the games.
When I lived in Chicago, I followed the White Sox pretty close. So I used to go to a lot of their games. So not living close to it anymore, I think that's what's made me not follow the sport so much. But there was a time in my life that I did.
Yeah. And this could be
always a good time.
This could be our year, eh, Bruce? We're deep into the playoffs and the Leafs are still playing.
That's but let's not go there. We might jinx it, and we've been waiting since 67 for this. So
yeah, this could be it. All right, so we've for those of you who've been playing along at home, we first started to talk to Mike May way back in March. The first episode was like March the 3rd or 4th or 5th or something like that. And let me just check. I'll look on the big camera. It was March the 6th for the first episode. And we quickly discovered that Mike is such an interesting guy. We had all kinds of things to talk to him about. And this is actually the 5th time we've talked because I screwed up the first one. It was just a read-through.
Yeah, that was the rehearsal.
What are you doing, Scott?
Nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not buying into that, but
Yeah, we're not buying into any of that. and
the answer.
And I even put it on mute so you wouldn't hear.
yeah, yeah.
It's like when you're a kid, you hear him doing something. What are you doing there? Nothing.
Nothing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. How's your toes, Scott?
Oh man, that is rough.
Yeah, it's been like a month and a half, and they still don't seem to be healing.
I know. It's really not good, really.
So since the last time we talked, Mike, Scott busted the 3 toes on his right foot.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
The middle 3. How he managed to bust the middle 3, I will never understand that. That takes a certain amount of skill.
Well, I'm a skillful guy. Wow. It is really amazing, but I guess that's what those 2 outside toes are for.
Yeah. Guarding the other 3.
Yeah, but it didn't work this time.
So Mike.
Yes.
So Mike.
So Lionel.
Yeah. So I gotta confess something.
I'm ready.
Since the last time we talked in more depth last time about your travel and going to Warner. One of your things that you have to do on a regular basis is go to Warner Brothers.
That's true.
Because I still didn't understand why you would have to constantly go to Warner Brothers, because it seems like a pretty straightforward gig. You guys are running the Polar Express. You have the licensing to it, and it's up to you to license it out and look after it and run it. So I called Warner Brothers about this.
Was that who you were talking to today?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I spoke to a guy named Bob. And he seemed,
Okay.
And he seemed
I'm not sure I've met Bob, but
yeah, he seemed to know all about it.
You're going to soon.
Well,
yeah.
I told him the story, right? And he said, yeah. He says, these guys have been coming out for a few years now. And he said, they keep coming out and like, we're just not getting it because it's like, it's a bear and a guy in a conductor suit. And we don't understand what they don't get about it. We don't understand why they keep coming out for meetings for the same thing they do year after year. He says, well, they've been doing it for years now and they're still coming out to talk to us about it.
I think he said they invite him out there, though.
Well, that's what Mike says, but that's why I was suspicious. So I called Warner Brothers.
Oh, so Bob didn't have that
Bob
same
didn't
story.
say that too.
No, Bob didn't. Bob,
the story's not matching.
Yeah, basically, Bob's whole thing was they don't at Warner Brothers. They don't get it. They don't understand what you guys don't get about it's a bear and a guy in a conductor suit. Like, it's a pretty straightforward gig. And the story doesn't change from year to year. It's the same story every year. But somehow
except that you keep putting a bear into it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where the bear's coming from. You must have been talking to Bob, and Bob over there.
What is there not a bear in it?
No.
You
should watch the movie. I tell you what, Lionel, we got to do another one, and you have to watch the movie by the next time we interview Mike.
Okay, well, I figure
we're gonna do another episode.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking of is those Coca-Cola ads.
Exactly.
That's got the bear.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
you'd have to go down to Atlanta to talk to them about that.
Yeah.
And that's not Bob.
That's Billy Bob.
Yeah. Billy Bob. I know him. He's a good friend.
He's a good guy, isn't he? Yeah, you talked about Billy Bob before.
Yeah, I know his language.
Well, there's a lot of snow. I see a lot of snow. And I see one with there's a snowman. It's not a bear. It's a snowman.
There's a snowman. That's true.
Yeah,
there is a snowman.
So that's what Bob said. He doesn't know what you're not.
There is a conductor also.
Yeah.
There is a conductor.
Yeah, that's what
snowman.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Bear.
That's what he said. He's not getting it. It's a snowman and a guy in a conductor suit.
When that movie came out, I thought I had it made with my kids and model railroading.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was going to do the trick. It did for a while, but
Well, they're girls though. They're
I
more.
know that's where the problem came in.
Yeah. But
there's a lot of women in
there is a lot of women are very.
And I'm thinking they'll come back.
You got to get them talking to Michelle Kempema and.
Yep, there's actually
like
recently I've noticed considerably a lot of ladies are coming into the hobby.
A whole lot of them, exactly, and they're very talented at that.
Yeah. And then these guys, then they started the Ladies in Model Railroading Special Interest Group.
I don't get that. I get that, but I don't understand why guys do.
That I am completely confused about.
because the guys support them and they can offer advice to them. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's smart, though. Those are smart guys.
If they were smart, they wouldn't join.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Because what did our friend Bruce? What did our friend Ed Olszewski say? When we asked him if he could have a superpower, what would it be?
An understanding woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that is right. Yeah.
Yeah. See, with me, I was walking past the booth at this Springfield show, and they asked me if I wanted to join their special interest group, and I said, I'll be back. I'm going to join for sure, but I'll come back.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Yeah, and man, I just kept moving.
Yeah.
I think it's great that the ladies have a special interest group, but I don't think they need me involved.
No, they don't surely need you involved. That's for sure.
Or you.
Yeah, or me.
Hey, Bruce.
Yes.
Oh, and since then, it's been like about a month since I was on the live stream for Rapido Trains.
Yeah, are they still talking about that?
They're still talking about it, yeah.
Did that go over?
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
yeah, it was me and Tony Cook and Jason Schron and Jordan Smith at Rapido Trains.
That's pretty special.
Yeah, because it all happened at Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
I was trying to figure out if we were on the which channel we're on here.
I know.
That's why we're on the free channel. All the episodes are on the free channel, Bruce. Yeah, I'll send you notes. I mean, I know you've only been with us for 8 years.
Yeah. Since the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, Bruce.
And actually, the beginning of everything, the beginning of the commercial, the beginning of the podcast, all of it.
Yeah, Bruce came up with AML Nation, AML Network.
Yeah,
Bruce came up with it all.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
That's
there you
Bruce.
go. And the commercials.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways,
a lot of the commercials were our friend Boston Joe.
Joe, yeah.
The great late Boston Joe.
So, anyways,
come down to the rumba room.
What's that?
Come down to the rumba room of the Casa de Sol.
I really hate I never got to meet him. Wow.
Yeah, you would have loved Boston Joe.
You would have loved Boston Joe. What a great guy.
Yeah, let's tell that story again. It was my 65th birthday, and I was feeling a little down in the dumpers for a couple of reasons. And one night, Boston Joe and I are online together talking. And the Leafs and the Boston Bruins were in the playoffs, the hockey playoffs. So this is like 3 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago. And I'm talking, and I said, I offhandedly said, geez, man, I should come to Boston, and we should go to the game on Thursday. And this is like Monday or something. It'd be cool if we could go to a Bruins game, And we're talking, and like 15 minutes later, Joe goes, okay, I bought the tickets. All you got to do is get yourself down here. So then I went, and it was a great time. I got such a great picture of us eating hot dogs and everything. That's the kind of guy Boston Joe was.
Yep.
Now on that cheerful note, although it was a cheerful note because Boston Joe was a great guy.
Boston Joe brought smiles to lots of people.
So we got one more order, but we're only 15 minutes in. How do you think your part 4 is going so far, Mike?
I think it's been great.
Okay.
How do you feel?
What's that?
I said, how do you feel about it?
I think we chewed up about 11 minutes of useful.
Yeah, but you did learn there's no bear in the movie, so that's a positive.
That's
That was
true.
a huge step forward. I mean,
Yeah,
that's taken 4 episodes, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Because I confused it with the Coca-Cola commercial. It's very similar. The images are very similar to the Coca-Cola commercial.
Well, I think it's the polar part that's confusing you.
Yeah, because there's polar bears.
Right.
Right.
And
And then there's the Polar Bear Express, which is Ontario Northland.
there's the Polar Bear
That's true,
Express.
too.
Yeah. Have you ever ridden that one yet, Mike?
I sure haven't.
Okay.
I would love to, though.
Yeah, that's on your list. So before we go on, the only other thing we got to talk about is that this podcast and all the free podcasts, every Monday podcast, and pretty much everything that's associated with the AML Nation is exclusively sponsored by our friends over there at Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
And they're selling like 1,000 of those. They're going to sell like a bazillion of those GE 44 tonners.
I think they're going to have to charter a one-whole container ship to bring them all
Yeah,
over.
that's right. They're going to need one 40-foot container to get all of those.
No, I mean one ship full of
One
40-foot
ship,
containers. Oh yeah, they're going to sell a shipload of them.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, they are going to sell a boatload of them, and they got lots of other cool stuff too. But man, I just can't I can't get past those 44 tonners. They're just going to be the Angus Shop's caboose. That one's kind of sweet too, though.
That's a sweet looking one. I wish they had one of those in O scale, but they don't.
O scale.
Yeah, I would go make it with the GP9 I'm working on in P48 to do a diorama. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, would it ever?
Down behind the CP GP9, but
they got so much stuff.
And it's all great stuff. You know, the people whinge and whine about the price on, but the quality of the stuff they're selling and what you're paying for it, it's great stuff.
It is great stuff.
Yep.
So what we suggest is that you go to rapidotrains.com and tell them Lionel sent you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tell them you heard about Rapido Trains on the AML Nation.
Mention AML Nation and you'll get no discount, but you'll get your satisfaction.
Yeah, that's right. Your satisfaction will be ramped up by 3 degrees.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if we'll see. I think they're enjoying it. I think they're enjoying their what's the word you use? Or their association with Modeler's Life podcast.
Partnership.
Well, I guess
they haven't run screaming fast the other way yet. So
No.
They hadn't sent a rejection letter yet.
No, not yet.
No, we're doing
there you
good.
go.
And they did have me on that live stream back in March. So
Oh,
Yeah.
well, cool. Well, that's a positive.
yeah, all right. So rapidotrains.com. Go there. Tell them Lionel sent you. Buy something. We'd appreciate it because they're helping to support the podcast.
Yeah.
They are.
And they have a polar bear. That's what they need. Hey, I just had a great idea. Let's give out a little bit of a plug to our buddy there, Bernard Helen, over there at Mini Prints.
Yes.
The 3D guy. How about here you go, Bernard. 3D print a polar bear. Boom.
Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think I'd have to have one.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, you would actually need one for your layout.
Absolutely.
That would
Yeah.
be cool.
Yeah, there you go. Done. Boom. We'll take just a slight piece of that one. All right, let's get on. So my first question is: we've done pretty good the last 2 episodes. We've been semi-organized. I've been going through my list. I know where I left off. So as always, don't answer any questions you don't want to, but you are under intense scrutiny.
Whew. It's a lot of pressure.
Turn on the overhead light there, Bruce.
Just this in, Mini Prince does have polar bears.
Oh, well, there you go.
Hey,
He's got polar bears. He's got muskox.
Wow.
What's a muskox?
Those
Muskox.
big shaggy haired guys that hang around up in the tundra and
No, yeah, right.
the big curly horns.
Okay, American Heritage Railways. I want to figure out more about American Heritage Railways, which
In
is
the rodeo?
yeah.
in the rodeo.
All right, guys.
Yeah. Before we go on,
I do have a question.
yeah, before we go on, can you explain to us more about the AHR rodeo series? That was a highlight for. I've told a half a dozen people that. For those of you that missed the last episode, we're going along.
Go back and listen to it.
We're going along. Great questions. All of a sudden, Scott wakes up from his stupor and goes, "What about the AHR rodeo series?" And I'm thinking,
even I had to stop and think about
and that
it.
caught everybody looking as it got the outside corner.
yeah, that one went right. Yeah, that
was straight over the plate.
Yep. All right, what's your question, Scott?
Has Mike ever driven any of the Galloping Goose?
Oh yeah, good question. Wow.
Good question. I've never driven one, but I've worked as a pilot on Goose 5.
How many?
Because they have like 5 of them or so.
There were, I think there were 7 or 8 built.
Wow, that many.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they're all different.
I was just thinking that would be a blast to drive, even though operating a steam engine's pretty cool. I think that would even be maybe a little more fun.
They're really cool. The like I said, I've only been on Goose 5, which is kept at in Dolores, Colorado. There's a little museum out there, and they bring it over to the Durango and Silverton. I feel like it's a couple of times a year on average to do charter trips with it. And they're funky little machines.
Yeah, I bet that would be cool as all get out.
They are. They're. I mean, when they drive it, it's really. I mean, you're driving a car without a steering wheel, right?
Yeah,
and it's got air brakes instead of a brake pedal. But working as a pilot, man, that's the most uncomfortable thing you can possibly do here. You basically get a step box to sit in the stairwell of that thing.
Oh, wow.
Everything hurts by the time you're done.
I bet.
You need to take a couple of pillows. Take from the guy that sits on the milk crates. Get a couple of pillows.
Oh, yeah. There's not enough pillows in the world to.
Is that the thing they do in August when they bring, like, if there is other narrow gauge engines, they bring them over and test them out on the.
Yeah, we used to do a thing. It was every August.
Yeah.
We called it Railfest, but we haven't really done that in a few years. It's just kind of it's throughout the year now. Different things will come to visit, and we'll run charter trains and extras and specials and things. But the Goose, since it's it's easy to truck it and it's right down the road, it's over here pretty often.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Now, when you say you run charter trains, is that trains outside? Because I've seen pictures like they'll do like a freight charter for photo run bys and stuff like that. Is that something that outside group who Bob's Steam Charters will contact and say, I want to run a train of this and this up the line and back and stuff for run bys and all that? They contact you and do that, or is it something the railroad plans and then sells tickets for? It's
actually some of both. We do we always do a few of our own photo specials every year, and then we'll occasionally do our own special trains based on visiting equipment or things like that. But we also do actual charter photo trains. There's a handful of those every year, it seems like. So like last fall we did a really big one for Trains Magazine. So in those sort of situations, basically the charterer calls us and specifies what they want it to be, and they sell the tickets, and it's basically their train. So we do quite a few of those. We do some of those every year for film companies and commercial shoots and things like that. So there's a handful of times trains get chartered throughout the year.
Thinking of doing that, I know in the past they've run the rotary plow specials in the spring, clearing the land out. They still going to do some of that action?
The rotaries run down in Cumberson Toltec.
Oh, Cumberson. Sorry, wrong road.
Yeah, they actually have never successfully run rotaries on the Silverton branch.
Okay.
There's a lot of history there, but basically the difference is that Cumberson Toltec, for the most part, sees drifting snow, which is what rotaries are great for. We see avalanches, so you run a rotary blade through an avalanche and it hits a rock and it tears the blade up. Yeah. So there's only a few times the rotaries have ever run on the Silverton branch, and it's always because it was prior to the highway going all the way to Silverton, so the railroad is the only way up there. And
Right.
the railroad would basically get ordered by the Public Utilities Commission to just do whatever you can to open it.
Oh, cool.
So they'd run a rotary up there, and usually it'd go, a mile, break down. They'd haul it back to Durango, fix it, go another mile.
Wow.
But yeah, they don't do well with rocks and trees and junk like that. It's always been a railroad cleared by wedge plows.
How much does it cost to charter a train?
Oh, that depends on so many factors. It's not inexpensive though.
No.
It all depends on like what kind of equipment you want, how long of a day, what's it going to do, how many cars, locomotives. Do we have to rebuild a locomotive for you?
So like when the trains guys had theirs,
Mm-hmm.
did they must have had like a couple of hundred people kind of thing? Probably.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I feel like there was 100 and some change, 20,
Right.
130. It was pretty busy. It was definitely pretty busy.
And okay, so I got a question for you. Again, not sure if it'll make any sense. But one of the fun things about having these discussions with you is kind of you've been so immersed in railroading since your whole adult life. Maybe you should try. Hey, I just had a great idea. I just had a great idea. You
Preceded by a laugh.
Yeah, but that really doesn't mean.
And I'm sitting over here, so the joke's probably on me.
Yeah. Yeah, you're always. I'm sure you guys are always trying to figure out a way to make the Polar Express experience even better. Would that be a true statement? Like one of the things you guys are constantly talking about and everything is how to make the Polar Express experience even better and more enjoyable or exciting for everybody.
That's my whole job. So yeah.
Listen up.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Add a polar bear.
Joke's still going to be on you, though.
Add a polar bear. Can you imagine if, like, halfway through the show on the train, you just released a polar bear to wander?
I think that's a whole different experience.
Yeah, that would make for an exciting experience.
Yeah,
to make for an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, just have everybody sign a waiver before they get on the train.
This could happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, with these charters, like I'm fascinated by these charters because people pay a fair amount of money to do these photo run-bys or these charters. And I'm always a guy we got to interview, Fred Hill from the Whistle Stop in Pasadena. He has the coach yard, which specializes in brass trains. And he's got $7,000 and $8,000 trains that he sells on a regular basis, HO scale trains. And I really believe that this hobby is kind of incognito because on the one end of the spectrum, you'll have people complaining that, $300 for a locomotive is too much money. And on the other end of the spectrum, he's got probably paying, a few $100 just to stand at the side of a track and watch a staged train go by. So, do you get the sense that, you must get the sense. That's the thing. You must just get a sense that this whole railroading thing is almost like a hidden gem because, like we talked about, what is it called? Hesston.
Hesston, yep.
Steam
Steam Museum.
Yeah, I was listening to episode 1. I was listening to the first episode of our 47-part trilogy. It was so good. I was listening to it again, and you mentioned the guy's. The general manager of the place, and I thought, man, he'd be great. That'd be a great interview, especially if you joined us.
Oh, sure. That'd be fun.
Yeah. What's his name?
Ted Rita.
Ted Rita. Like RITA?
That's exactly right.
Like TED?
TED.
Ted Rita. That would be a fun interview. And Scott, you'll be busy that night.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell him when I contact him, I'll tell him Mike sent me.
Please do. You know what? I'll even contact him for you if you want.
Does he
That would
live
be
in
even
Florida
better.
or does he live in Colorado?
He lives in Michigan or
Oh, okay.
Illinois. Indiana. He lives in Indiana, where the Hesston Steam Park, the one we first talked about on the first.
Right, but I was thinking for some reason we said he lived in Florida. All right, never mind.
Never mind.
Forget I said anything.
Just one other
the rodeo you were thinking about.
Well, no, I was going to ask you about that. Wasn't the didn't the Rail Fest follow the rodeo series?
Oh my God! Did they have clowns?
Clowns are the best part.
They are. Well, they are because you know what they do.
Yeah, they clown around. Apparently, Bruce doesn't think any of this is funny because he's not laughing.
He's
No,
not.
I don't like clowns.
That's right. You don't like clowns.
I do not like clowns. Whatever the term is, clown. I know it's not clownophobia; it's something else. But I do not like clowns. I have never liked clowns.
So okay, so go ahead. You were going to say something, Mike?
I just thought that's interesting. He doesn't like clowns.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it is an actual phobia. There are
It's
lots.
a thing.
Yeah, it is an actual thing.
I'll tell you later.
So you can't say that on the podcast because then it's like an inside joke. So,
What's that?
well, it would be Scott said, "I'll tell you later" or something.
Oh, you heard that?
Well, yeah, because your microphone's
Well,
on.
your microphone's on. Remember?
Okay, dummy.
Man, this is.
I don't really like dummies either. So clowns and dummies.
Yeah, I know. So knock it off, all right?
Yeah, knock it off, you guys. Come on, you're hurting my
Come on.
feelings here.
Yeah.
So, do you get that sense, though? Do you ever kind of like, with all the things you've done and how immersed you are in railroading, do you ever think to yourself, man, like, how come this isn't more popular? How come it isn't? Or it just seems to me like at every turn with this podcast, I stumble onto something else that's just incredible to even think about that it's happening. You know, and I know but just think about it. The whole Durango and Silverton, they have charters and run by photo shoots and 200,000 people a year. And it's not on the main drag. Like you have to go to Durango. Do you ever?
It's kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah, I guess that leads good into my next question or observation. Is I wanted to talk to you about the American Heritage Railways and the Harper family. Like, what's the history there? Was he a rail fan when he bought the company or created the company?
I guess I don't want to speak too much on his behalf, but
okay.
He, I know that he got his start with railroading through being part of the board of directors of Tri-Rail, I believe, down in Florida, where he lived a bunch of his life.
That's the guy that lived in Florida. Okay,
there's a connection.
Yep.
So he was involved in railroading there, and then it was with a group of people, of different investors that they got together and started. At the time, it was First American Railways, and First American is the group that they formed to buy the Durango and Silverton from Charles Bradshaw, who was the prior owner and the one who bought it from the Denver Rio Grande. And so First American owned it, and then through part of the story that you'd almost have to ask him to get the whole side of it, but ultimately he ended up buying out the other partners,
right?
And that was only a year later. So First American Railways went away, and that's when American Heritage Railways began.
So he probably must. I'm sure he must have had a very strong interest in trains, or a very wide knowledge of trains to realize that this was a thing that was going to continue on.
Yeah, I think he definitely has an interest in trains. There's no doubt about that. Otherwise, he wouldn't really dive into it. But he's got a very strong interest in, I would say, just kind of history in general. So this really fits in his world of interests in that way. But he's always been a businessman too. So like, I think that, thinking that this is a good opportunity, a lot of that comes from being able to see that like future of it and the broad impact that it can have. he's always been a big proponent of what else can we do with it. It's about preservation of history, but it's also about how can you make that accessible and how can you make it successful.
And so when did the Great Smoky Mountains Railroad become part of the American Heritage Railway?
Oh, this is a quiz question. It's shortly thereafter. I think it's like 2000.
Okay.
So 98 was Durango and Silverton. And I believe it was 2000. I could be plus or minus a year or two.
Fascinating, though, eh? I mean, you must just sometimes just kind of like pinch yourself. I mean, I know it's a job, but I mean, it's a pretty cool job.
It's a very cool job. Yeah, it is definitely a job, but
Sure.
No, I'm very appreciative of it. It's a very cool position to be in.
Yeah, and it seems like it's just getting cooler as time goes along. I mean, a guy your age, at the age of 39, I mean, by the time, you're 60 and will have lived another 20 years of this life.
Yeah.
I hope you take a lot of pictures and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Got to do that. But I agree. I think I do think it's an exciting time here. And I think that it's growing a lot. It's, certainly the company is growing. There's no doubt about that because we're always coming up with new ways to do things and trying new stuff. I mean, the railroad's always going to be 45 miles long. It's not like we're going to build more tracks somewhere, but
right.
The company's always fascinating. We're never stagnant, I guess is a good way of saying it.
And because I'm convinced that railroading in general and model railroading and rail fanning in general is going to become more and more popular because it's so accessible to people now.
Yeah.
Through.
I think there's truth there. Yeah. For sure.
I don't see how it can't be.
Yeah.
All right. So anyways, we won't talk much more about.
Well, no. Do they have a model railroad shop like a souvenir shop at the depot or anything?
We do have there's a gift shop there, and I like to think we have some pretty cool swag.
Okay.
But there's been several attempts at hobby shops in Durango over the years, but I think it's just the population isn't big enough.
Okay.
Unfortunately for me.
Yeah. Has there ever been any kind of thought or discussion about having some sort of a display model railroad there as part of American Heritage Railway? Or
yeah, we do actually have one in the museum. In the Railroad Museum is about half of the roundhouse is a museum.
Okay.
And there's an HON3 layout there.
And who would maintain that?
The museum staff, and then there's a lot of volunteers that come in and poke around with it and maintain it.
Yeah. And it's a fairly good quality, isn't it?
It's nice, yeah.
Okay.
It is.
And I didn't realize that. So half of the roundhouse is a museum.
It is, yeah. The roundhouse is one of the oldest buildings in town. And it was originally, I believe it was 9 stalls, the original roundhouse. But that burned down in 1989 and got rebuilt later the same year. It was a very quick project. But when it got rebuilt, they doubled the size of it with the intent of it having a museum. So the original part remains the shop, and then the other half of it now is all museum space.
Well, let me ask this. The locomotives that were in the roundhouse when it caught on fire, did it take a long time to rebuild those?
It's a pretty miraculous story, but they managed to rebuild enough locomotives to run the Silverton season that year.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm sure at that moment they probably were using everything that they possibly had, and if anything were to break on the road, it was probably a big problem. Not a lot of backup, but they did manage to get things rebuilt. It's fascinating too. Even today, if you know exactly what you're looking at, you can see evidence of the fire on some of the locomotives.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
There's some
mostly
parts
on the
like
cabs, probably.
Exactly. Yeah, like on the running boards, the trim on some of them, it's kind of wavy.
Wow.
That's from heating up during the fire.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
And what about the Grand Imperial Hotel? What's the deal on that?
American Heritage Railways bought the Grand Imperial about 8 years ago now. And kind of the idea behind it is that, we don't really have a good way of doing one-way trips or overnight trips for passengers up in Silverton, unless they were to figure out their own accommodations up there. So we bought the hotel with the intent of trying to be able to kind of maximize the different types of trips that we could have for passengers and package deals and things like that. And again, it just fit the mission statement of history preservation and so on and so forth. It's a very cool old 3-story Victorian hotel right in downtown Silverton.
That goes back to the conversation of, it's almost like rail fanning and railroad preservation and everything is almost like a secret.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's so popular. You can go so many, there's got to be hundreds of scenic railways in the lower 48 in North America, encompassing North America. And railroading is so, the hobby of railroading is so popular, and it's also accessible to people that aren't in the hobby or rail fans, particularly through going to ride the Durango and Silverton. I mean, riding the Durango and Silverton, 200,000 people a year. Most of those people have got to be somewhat interested in railroads, because it's like I say, it's not just, at exit 13 off the interstate.
Yeah.
You've got to travel there.
For sure. I think, one of the things that we're lucky about as a company is that we are in a tourist economy here. So we do have a lot of travelers that are here for other reasons as well. But there's no doubt that a lot of them are also here. Like the railroad is the first reason why they're here, and then everything else comes from that. But it's a good combination of all of that. There's no doubt that, I think most people that ride the train, whether or not a fascination in railroading is their original reason for riding it, some of them it's just the scenery or something to do or a way to explore the area. But there's no doubt that a lot of people walk away with the fascination that they didn't have before.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's go back to the Galloping Goose, because I forgot to talk to you about that. So you said it was stored in Dolores, Colorado, which is 30 miles away, 25 miles away?
Yeah, Dolores is, it's
roughly.
Yeah, not quite an hour drive.
Okay.
So it's a little longer than that. But yeah, Dolores was on the main line of the Rio Grande Southern Railroad. So the depot building is still standing in Dolores, and that's now the museum. And the Goose is parked out front of it, and the museum's the folks that maintain it.
And so who owns the Goose? Those guys?
They do, yep.
And how many of those exist now? Just like 1 or 5 or 3 or?
That's what I have to think about. I think Goose 1 is gone, and then I think 2 through 7 are still around. But someone should fact check me on that.
Okay. Would be best if Bruce did it. Bruce?
I'm efforting it right now.
Attaboy. Because that's fascinating. And they literally truck it over a couple of times a year to run it on the railroad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also been to Coombers and Toltec. They'll run it over there. I believe it's been up to the Colorado Railroad Museum as well.
How many people will it hold?
Goose 5, gosh, I bet it's 25 or 30.
Really?
Yeah, something like that.
So originally they were used as for passengers.
Of the 7 geese, only number 1 does not survive. It was scrapped in 1933. However, a replica was built in 2000 for the Ridgeway Railroad Museum and is operational today. The other 6 are located as follows. Geese 2, 6, and 7 are at the Colorado Railroad Museum and are operational. Goose 3 was sold to Knott's Berry Farm and is operated regularly during off-season periods when park attendance is low. Goose number 4 is on static display in Telluride and was restored to operation in Ridgeway. And Goose 5 was bought by the city of Dolores and restored in 1988 and now operates from time to time on the Coombers and Toltec and the Durango and Silverton, as well as the Colorado Railroad Museum.
And then Ridgeway is north of Silverton. And is that a separate operation from or is that somehow involved with the Cumberson toll tax?
No, that's totally separate. There's another small museum up in Ridgeway. It's actually a really cool little museum. But a lot of the Rio Grande Southern Railroad history is up there.
That is like, that's my point. Like there's so much.
Is Ridgeway where's the Georgetown Loop? Is that Ridgeway or is that somewhere else?
Georgetown Loop's in Georgetown.
Okay, Georgetown.
Right. It goes between Georgetown and Silver Plume.
Okay.
But those are a lot closer to Denver.
Okay.
And how much trackage does the Georgetown Loop have?
Oh gosh, 5-6 miles maybe.
Okay. And again, it's been preserved. And people ride on it.
Yep, that's an operating tourist railroad.
I think, man, there's just so many people to talk to and so much to talk about. It's just starting this podcast was a complete mistake. All right, we got 4 more subjects to cover, so we got limited amount.
Did I do good on the geese though?
Yeah, you did good on the geese.
Yeah, you did really good.
I got the right numbers.
Yeah. And have you ever been to downtown Pagosa Springs?
Me and Earl was hauling chickens on a flatbed out of Wiggins. We'd spent all night on the uphill side of 37 miles of hell called Wolf Creek Pass, which is up on the Great Divide.
Shift her into gear there, Earl. What's your involvement with the NMRA?
NMRA, we have a local division here, the Silver San Juan division. I'm currently the treasurer for the board there. And then I'm also involved in the Rocky Mountain region a little bit. I'm serving on their board of directors as well. But yeah, NMRA, I just mostly on the division level, I would say, is my involvement. I got involved there probably 5 or 6 years ago now. Another modeler in town, I was talking to it about it, and he just kind of convinced me that, hey, this is a good group of people. You should come join. So sure, cool. So that's really how I got involved in it. I've known about it for a long time, but for whatever reason, I've just never really had a tie to it. So, but it's been a lot of fun. It's a great group of people that's down here, and we've got modelers from Durango, Farmington, New Mexico, Pagosa Springs. Those are probably our biggest draws, but kind of the whole Four Corners region.
Okay. And
we're pretty geographically widespread just because of the sparse population.
Right. So how many people would come out to a meet?
We do 2 meets a year we try to do at least an activity every month, but we do 2 meets a year. And I'd say we get, 40.
Really?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, it's actually pretty good, considering how small our population is.
Why am I the only person that's like fascinated by this?
That was
I'm
actually
fascinated by it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about how, you find it interesting that there's more people out there than we realize. And I had the exact same realization when I got involved with this local chapter of NMRA, because before that, I knew the few people who were modelers just because you find a way to connect here or there. Right. But I had a hard time believing there were that many, and it's cool. Like there's a handful of people that are part of the group that are, maybe they're just interested in it. They're not really active, but they still find it a good thing to do. But there are more like just very talented modelers that are part of this group that I would have had no idea they're anywhere in this region.
Yeah.
If it weren't for going to that meeting, I was like, I've never even heard of these folks or these layouts. And it is pretty cool.
It is. It's like the hobby is just like massive. I know, and I'm tired of me saying it, but I can't help but say it because at every turn I meet somebody else, and somebody else's story is fascinating, and this guy knows that guy, and like I say, I think the hobby fits in somewhere. There's not enough revenue for a company to sponsor, the Mile High Stadium, but there's plenty of revenue to make this a very viable industry that continues to grow and chug along.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Have you ever been drinking knee highs and onion soup mix?
Up on the Great Divide. We were sitting there sucking toothpicks, drinking knee highs and onion soup mix, and I said, Earl, let's mail a card to Mother and then send them chickens on down the other side. Yeah, let's give them a ride.
I guess you know what the problem there is? I didn't realize until I started this podcast, and somehow I was talking to somebody about something, and I'd been listening to the song for decades, and then suddenly realized there's actually a Pagosa Springs.
Right?
Yeah. And there's an actual Wolf Creek Pass.
Yeah, exactly.
There actually is.
All right. So you like being involved in the NMRA. You're on the board of the local division. Have you ever been chairman of the board?
No, I never have.
Good answer.
I think our chairman does a wonderful job.
Okay.
His name's not Kelly, is it?
Yeah.
No.
No, he's just they're just outside of the greater Medford catchment area for Kelly to take over.
That's right. Exactly. What about Southern Pacific number 18? What's the dealio on that?
SP 18. I mean, gosh, I shouldn't get too much into the history because that's totally not my story. But
well,
it's
if you know the history, you can say.
I know a little bit of it. It's a Southern Pacific.
How did we end up talking about it?
Because it's been out here to the Durango and Silverton. It's operated on the railroad here. And a lot of the guys from our railroad have been involved in going out to Independence, California, where it's based. And we're a part of the restoration effort on it. Our chief mechanical officer here is effectively their CMO too, as a volunteer. And the engine only got restored to service, 2019. I could be wrong about that. It's recent, maybe 2018. But it's the classic story of a locomotive that sat in a park for 50 years, and then someone decided, hey, let's make it run again, and they've done an amazing job with it.
And where is it? Where does it reside on a regular?
So, yeah, it resides in Independence, California, which is, it's like central eastern California on the backside of the Sierra Nevadas. So it's a very sparsely populated valley. It's called the Owens Valley, and that's where the Southern Pacific ran. They had a narrow gauge railroad out there. And it was the only piece of Southern Pacific that was narrow gauge, and it lasted until like 1950-ish.
How about August 25th, 1959?
That's great. 1959. This is why I say it's not really my story, but
well, apparently I'm well versed in it, so I can help.
You're very versed. Wikipedia might help.
Exactly.
You don't know that.
No, I don't. But
yeah.
Yeah, you can make assumptions, but you don't know that.
Apparently, had a piston ring failure when it was on the Denver Durango and Silverton.
It did. Yeah, I wasn't there for that. I kind of wish I got to witness it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I got another question for you, but we'll come back to that because in the city of Independence, California, is there a railroad park there too?
No, it was the engine sat in a park, like it was donated probably or something like that. But it just sat on static display, and that's where they did most of the restoration for it. And they've since built a shop building for it, it's only a few blocks away from where the park was, and they probably have 500 feet of track or something, enough that you can steam it up and run it back and forth. But when they really run it, it's also, I mean, it's not small, but it's small enough that it's truckable without crazy oversized load trucks. So they do travel it quite a bit.
So in Independence, California, there's this Southern Pacific locomotive, aka the Slim Princess.
That's it.
Number 18. And there's no particular railroad museum there or anything. Just all of a sudden, a bunch of guys wanted to restore it, and because they restored it, they keep it there on 500 feet of track. And then when they want to run it, they load it up like somebody would have it, a 7.5-inch gauge locomotive. They load it up on a truck and take it over to Durango to run it.
Pretty much.
Like, it must cost $1 bazillion to move it from Independence, California to Durango.
It can't be cheap, but they've got a huge volunteer program, and they get a lot of funding through donations, grants. They get funding through running photo trains with it when they bring it out to Durango, for example.
Right.
So
doesn't that seem like almost, doesn't that seem
bizarre?
Like mind-boggling almost, that there's there's a locomotive, a Southern Pacific narrow gauge 18 in Independence, California, and twice a year they'll load it up on a flatbed, take it out to Durango. Like, you would think that they would take it out to Durango in June and take it back to Independence in September or something.
That's actually what they did. It was here it's had 2 stints here, and both were several months at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just for the weekend, Lionel.
Okay. Well, that's why we ask questions.
Exactly.
And was it available during the AHR rodeo series?
It was.
Yeah, ran all the rodeo specials.
Yeah.
It was.
I will never live it down.
No,
Did it also haul like the horses and the bulls up there for the rodeo series too?
Every time, yep.
Every
Kind of
time,
like a circus train.
It was basically ran a circus train, right? No clowns, though.
no clowns.
No
Okay.
clowns.
Well,
They would have been clowns, probably rodeo clowns.
Yeah, those are very
Those
important.
guys I can appreciate because they're doing an extremely dangerous job.
oh, so you
They're
don't.
not as scary as circus clowns.
Oh, okay. So you're okay with rodeo clowns because they're
Rodeo
getting.
clowns, because they're
They're
if
there
they're doing
for
what
a
they're doing. They
reason.
got to be kind of nuts in the head, but they do a hell of a job.
So now that we're on talking about steam locomotive, not that we haven't been talking about anything else, but it reminded me because, like I say, the episode 1 was so good, I was listening to it again, and we talked about. I asked you about the water glass.
Yeah.
And during that discussion, you were telling me, if a water glass is empty, that's problems. Jump off the train. And so, what is it that causes a boiler to explode?
There's a lot of possible ways, but the by far most common answer is a crown sheet failure.
And the crown sheet is the one that's near the firebox.
It is the top sheet of the inner firebox.
Okay.
So the inner fireboxes, if you look into the firebox of the locomotive and you see the fire burning there, all the steel that you see on the sides and over the top, the front, the back, that's all the inner firebox. It's containing the fire itself. The outer firebox then there's a space between the 2 sheets of water completely surrounding the inner firebox. So the water itself, because the locomotive is operating at pressure, the boiling point of the water goes up, right? So out of 200 psi boiler, the water's in there about 300, I think it's like 365 degrees roughly. And that 365 degree water, even though it's hot, is still the coolant for the steel of the inner firebox, because the fire could be burning at 2,500 degrees, which is over the melting point of the steel of the firebox itself. All right. So the water level in the boiler always has to be above the top of the crown sheet, so that that's what ensures you that the entire inner firebox is surrounded by liquid water, right? So if the water level were to drop and it exposes the top of the crown sheet to the steam, which could be much higher temperature, and it's actually the temperature that's physics. We won't even go there. It won't be cooling the firebox anymore. So what can happen is that the top of the firebox, it won't usually melt. It usually explodes long before that, but it'll soften enough that it'll drop down, and then it's no longer in a shape that can hold pressure anymore. And that's what ultimately causes the boiler explosion.
Wow. And that's just some sort of mechanical. How often do you think in history has it been that the locomotive engineer, just lost attention on the water glass. Like
That's actually a really good question. I don't know how many times over history there's been failures.
okay.
It's a handful, but it's not like it's common,
No,
especially
exactly.
back when steam was everywhere,
Yeah.
right? Even if you heard about a couple a year, when you figure that out against how many.
Well, sure, absolutely. It's very rare. It was very rare, but every time you talk about a boiler explosion on a locomotive, it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
very rare that it's not catastrophic.
Yeah.
There's been some lucky ones out there, but it's very rare that it's not catastrophic. The part that makes them catastrophic is, I was saying the waters, because you're under pressure, the water's liquid up to 360 or more if the pressure's higher. And it's only remaining liquid because it's under pressure. So if the boiler fails and you drop the crown sheet out, the pressure goes down to 0. Well, now all that water that was liquid is immediately steam.
Right. And then there's too much pressure in the boiler.
The expansion of the steam is massive. So that's kind of the end of the boiler right there. So it's not really the initial failure that's the problem. It's the fact that the pressure is going to go way up real fast.
Fascinating that somebody figured out how to do that, to build steam locomotives.
Yeah.
It really is. It's endlessly fascinating to me that these magnificent machines that were built in the 1800s, late 1800s, and the early 1900s, and then the economy became so dependent upon them. They were all built without the use of computers or anything.
Yeah.
It's
pretty remarkable.
It really is, because they're so complicated.
Yeah.
And you're thinking to yourself, well, who is sitting in their house coming up with these ideas? The building of the steam locomotive. And I mean, locomotives.
Great guys like James Watt and George Stephenson.
Well, sure. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. But still, I mean, all right. So, Southern Pacific 18 is in Independence, California, and they bring it over to Durango once in a while to run. And you're involved. In what capacity are you involved at all? You're just a volunteer and you go over and,
my involvement has been that I've gone to spend some volunteer time with them a few times. So I'm not terribly involved. I know some friends of mine are highly involved, but I can't claim a whole lot of involvement.
And why do you think they are highly involved? Like, what is it that drives somebody to become highly involved in the restoration of a particular locomotive?
I think people, you gain an interest in a particular machine for whatever reason. I mean, it's not unlike someone that buys a classic car to restore it. I think it's a similar type of thing.
Yeah.
I think some folks, it's just, there's not a lot of steam locomotives around. So maybe they're just generally interested in steam locomotives, and the one that's sort of near them where they can go spend some volunteer time is whatever that may be. But I think, when folks get highly involved in them, it's probably because they have some kind of a connection to that particular piece of machinery.
Okay. And what connection did you have to SP-18? Anything, or you just happen to become involved?
No, I really didn't, other than, just knowing of the SP narrow gauge is kind of infamous just in North American narrow gauges, just because it was sort of a unique situation. They were running narrow gauge steam very late, kind of like the Rio Grande.
Yeah.
But really my involvement came from our chief mechanical officer, who's a good friend of mine. And like I was saying, he's very involved there. So I've tagged along with him a couple times, and it's a great way to spend a few days and go to California, hang out and do something fun.
I'm assuming you drive there?
We do. Yeah.
Yeah. How long would it take you to get there?
It's like 12 hours.
Okay.
So it's a long drive, but it's doable.
What are you driving these days?
I have a Jeep Wrangler.
Okay. That's good. You seem like a Jeep Wrangler kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you got big gummies on it?
No, nothing crazy.
Like a string of lights across the roof?
It's there's 2 extra ones on the hood, but no string of lights anywhere.
So do you ever go on any of those crazy mountain trails that Jeep?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
That's a good, if you live up in the mountains out here, I love that in the summer.
Have you had it?
That's a big part of why I bought it. Was just to be
Yeah.
able to access some of that backcountry.
Okay. And what's your favorite backcountry road to take?
Ooh, there's a ton of cool mountain roads up in the San Juans here. Stony Pass is definitely high on my list of favorites. Stony Pass goes up above Silverton up to the headwaters of the Rio Grande River, which I think that's pretty cool. It's pretty nowhere once you get up there.
Right.
It's the top of the pass is on the Continental Divide.
Okay. And well, there it is. There, I found it. It's off Highway 3.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. Well, it's wow. So it's on top of it's like the elevation up there is like 12,600 feet.
Yeah.
Because there are no straight. Do you ever get tired of the fact that there are no straight roads where you live?
That really is true, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's very few places you can just go in a straight line out here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
Never really thought much of it, but it is
okay.
true.
Well, then you haven't thought much of it. All right, I got a question for you. With all the railroading you've done and all the locomotives you've been exposed to and all the things, what has been your favorite locomotive to run?
Ooh. Gosh, I have to think about that a little bit. Can I answer with a couple of
Sure.
neat ones? Definitely out here on the Durango and Silverton, the 473's always been my favorite here.
Yeah.
Not sure I have any great reasons why. It just always has. I think the K28s they're cool looking locomotives. They run great. They're unique. So I don't know. I've always loved that one.
And how many times would you have been able to actually operate it?
Oh, I have no idea. It's a lot over the years.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how much people are drooling over the fact that it's like how many times have you run force? I keep thinking of Bruce. I keep thinking of Lex Parker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, man, can you imagine him? And like, how many times have you run 473? Oh, I don't know, a bunch of times.
Yeah. And I mean, if you even just look at how many times have you run a steam engine up the Silverton branch, like I definitely have no idea at that point.
But that's for people all over the world and many, many people listening to this podcast. That's like their dream to even get to ride in a cab. And it's like running 473 is like old hat to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I always enjoy it though. Like I think that's probably the case for most people here is that a lot of times it can become old hat. It is a job, so you definitely get those moments of like, okay, I'm done for the day. Or like, I'm really glad I'm off tomorrow.
Right.
But I don't think anybody who does it here would do it if they didn't get some enjoyment out of it. Right. Cause it's not easy.
Oh yeah. I was going to say,
it's not a cushy job, right?
No, does it feel like physical work? Because you really got to be the entire time you're running the locomotive, and not only do you have to be keenly aware of what the locomotive is doing and the grades that you're on and all that, you also have 100 people behind you. Yeah, counting on you to do the right thing.
Yeah, there's definitely like mental demandingness to it for sure, and it's definitely physical too. I mean, it's not physical like firing coal or something like that. I mean, you're mostly just sitting in the seat, but these aren't like, it's not like a modern engine that's got a nice air ride seat and computer controls and things like that. So
right.
They beat you up for sure. I mean, the environment's hard too. They're cold in the winter, they're hot in the summer. Yeah. So, I'm not going to play it up like it's the most physically demanding job by any means.
No, but I would imagine it's not. It is a reasonably physically demanding job, mentally and physically, because of all that's involved.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to keep track of. There's a lot that can go on. There's no doubt. There's a lot to it.
So is 473 like the biggest locomotive?
No, it's actually one of the smallest class that we have here.
Really?
Okay. There were 4 classes of Mikados on the Denver Rio Grande. There was the K27, K28, K36, and K37, and we don't have any K27s. There's 2 that exist still, but they're not here. But then we have some of the rest of the classes. So we've got 3 K28s, 4 36s, and 1 37 that are in service.
Right.
We have another 37 that maybe we'll run someday, but it's mostly a boiler shell frame and wheels. So it's a long way away from running.
It would be interesting to talk to Mr. Harper about owning American Heritage Railway.
Yeah.
Maybe you can put in a good word for us for that too.
I could do that.
All right. Just like this, you are like one of the most fascinating guests we've ever had.
I'm glad I could be that for you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Which obviously means that we have a pretty low bar.
Ooh.
That was,
I don't know how to take that.
yeah, that was rude, and I apologize. But the rim shot was a nice touch.
It was.
It's a nice touch to throw that in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is going back to your model railroad
Mhm.
and watching the video, and this comes full circle because I know your experience in theater that you touched on it briefly in that video about the lighting of your road and sort of taking some advantage of your theater background. Can you maybe expand upon that a little bit for us?
Sure. I went to college for theatrical lighting design, which is entirely different from all the railroading that I've done, but it's another industry that I've stayed involved with for my whole life. And really now, through working on Polar Express, it's a huge part of that is about technical theater and production work and all that sort of thing. But lighting design was specifically my concentration, and I have been doing it since I started it in high school, like a lot of kids do in high school theater and whatever. But it's always been a fascination of mine, and the model railroad seemed like a great stage as something to be able to mess around with lighting again as a hobby. So the whole model railroad is basically lit theatrically. And I used theatrical fixtures for it and theatrical software to control it. And during an operating session, it'll run through a cycle of night to day and back into night, and that matches the fast clock.
That's cool. That's
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
yeah. You should expand more on that. I figured out how I'm kind of annoyed now that you didn't stop me on the polar bear thing, the bear and the conductor thing. But it's the images for the Polar Express and the images for the Coca-Cola polar bear are very, very similar in color and texture. So that's how I got confused. That and the fact that I barely pay attention, and accuracy is of no concern to us here.
That makes me feel better about some of the facts I probably got wrong.
And we're very transparent about the lack of accuracy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's really we don't see any need for accuracy, I guess, basically, is it.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Bob a call back and say, add a polar bear to your little show there.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I think Bob has blocked your call now.
What's that?
I think Bob has blocked your call. He has your number.
Yeah. All right. 2 more things we're going to cover, and then we're going to let you go. And these are not train related, but they are.
I have one little question. All right?
Okay, good.
Sure.
Go for it.
Is there still people mining for gold anywhere along that line?
No, there are occasionally people that pan.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's getting rich doing it, but there are definitely hobbyist gold panners out there.
Right, there's not like any actual gold mines in operation.
No, nothing that's commercial.
Okay.
Now that said, there's probably an astronomical amount of gold and silver and zinc and lead and all that kind of stuff still in the hills here. I've heard I've heard everything from, they've only taken out 5% of it or whatever.
Right.
The problem with the mining here is it's all hard rock underground. So it's more expensive to get the gold out than the gold is worth. That's really what brought down the mining industry out here. It's not that the ore doesn't exist. There's a lot of claims that are still owned by mining companies. There's no active mining in the region now.
I gotcha.
Maybe they should do what they do in West Virginia and just blow the top right off the mountain.
Yeah.
That'd take a lot of blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
It takes a fair amount in West Virginia too.
Yeah. A lot of what they call flat top now.
Yeah, they call them flat tops.
Yeah. In West Virginia's soft rock, not hard rock. So
I know, but still, it's the same
rock.
Yeah, it's the same basic theory. Just load up the top of the mountain with dynamite and blow the top off it, and boom, there's your gold.
Yeah, a little more dynamite, a little more gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of coal, we'll get gold.
Yeah. What is this deal? And you're involved with the NPR, the national. What is it? National
Public Radio.
Yeah, you're involved with that.
Yeah, I've kind of going back to the whole theater background, like media, theater, live entertainment, all that kind of stuff sort of wraps up together. And I've always enjoyed radio as a medium. Personally, I've never been much of a TV watcher for news, but I've been a radio news junkie for my whole life.
Yeah, you won't enjoy it much after you listen to these.
Well, this isn't news, luckily. So, but yeah, I've been an NPR listener for years and years and years. So, we have a really good NPR affiliate here in Durango. So I don't know. I do know what happened. It was during the pandemic and I got bored and I started volunteering and saying yes to more things than I actually have time for. And I thought that it would be really cool to get involved with the NPR station. And they were looking for members for their board of directors. So I applied for it and I've been serving on that board for about 3 years now.
Have you ever been chairman of that board?
I've never been the chairman of the board. I like to stay one level below the top. I feel like that's the only way you can have all these commitments.
There you go.
All right. Well, let me ask you this question: when you're tooling around in your Jeep Wrangler, have you ever mashed your foot down in the throttle and then with a couple of boobs with 1,000 cubes, your 1948 Peterbilt screamed to life?
Well, Earl put down his bottle and mashed his foot down on the throttle, and then a couple of boobs with 1,000 cubes in a 1948 Peterbilt screamed to life. We woke up the chickens. We roared up off of that shoulder, spraying pine cones, rocks, and boulders, and put 400 head of them Rhode Island Reds and a couple of burned-out roosters on the line. Look out below.
I feel like we're going to get the entire song quoted in here before the end of it.
Oh, yeah. We got plenty of time.
It's pretty good.
And now, finally, our last subject. Please mail in your questions, and we'll get Mike back on again. You're going to be on. You're going to be on again. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you.
No, let's do it. It's fun.
As the years go by, you'll be on here doing really like now we have. The thing of it is, hey, just you know what? We're going to just have a little meeting here. So just hang on, just sit tight, and we're going to go off into the corner of the room and have a little meeting, the three of us.
All right.
Can I ask you two guys a question?
Certainly.
Sure.
Yeah. I think Mike likes me. What do you think?
Well, he's tolerating you.
Yeah, tolerating.
So, okay. So I shouldn't get that excited then.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Like if I went to Durango and just like, hey, Mike, I'm here. Can I stay over? You don't think he'd be like, hey, great.
He might wrangle
He
your
might, but-
look in the cab of the locomotive or something.
Okay. All right. So you have an interest in airplanes.
Yeah.
So what is that all about?
I don't know. They fascinate me.
Okay.
I guess I'm not really involved in them in any way,
No.
shape, or form, but they've always fascinated me. One of these days, I keep saying I'm going to get a private pilot's license, but I got to just stick that on the list of things to do. I've done no work to do it so far.
Yeah. So it's what kind of planes in particular? Any type, or like World War II, World War I?
Kind of any type. I fly commercial all the time, and I could live without that.
Well,
But-
yeah.
I mean, those planes are cool. If I could get up in the cockpit, that'd be great. But no, I've always enjoyed small planes. I've had the opportunity to fly on, several different small things here and there. And I don't know, there's something about that, just being a small machine like that up in the sky. I've flown in a de Havilland Beaver a couple of times, which I think is
the turbo
very
beaver,
cool.
the radial engine beaver.
radial engine.
Oh, that's the way to go.
It's a
Those are
very
great
cool
planes.
airplane. Yeah.
The thing gets me about those when they're warming up in the morning, you hear them going up, down, warming up. You think like, is this thing ever going to get off the water?
Exactly.
But no, when they get it warmed up, going, it's a great plane to ride.
Oh,
on.
they sound beautiful. Yeah. They're very, very cool planes.
Small world, Mike. Small world.
Small world.
Small world. My neighbor across the street, Bill Pullen, his father was a test pilot for de Havilland
Wow.
and spent a good portion of his adult life flying bush planes, had his own bush plane business, and they had a couple of de Havilland Beavers.
That's very cool.
And we were sitting around, and Bill, his son, has his own float plane, and he's taken me up on that a few times. But one night we're sitting there having a couple of pops in the summer across it. We're sitting because Bill was rebuilding a small plane in his garage. So his dad would come over, and by this time I had met his dad and knew that he had worked for de Havilland for years, was a test pilot, and had his own bush plane business, and blah blah blah. And when they tell me the story about the time Bill's dad was flying one of those rotary engines, and the thing just seized up. Just like he was flying along at 3,000 feet. He had a co-pilot. He had 4 guys in there, 5 guys in the back, loaded up with gear. And one of those rotary engines, it just seized up. Like the propeller stopped turning.
Wow. Sounds bad.
Yeah. And these guys his father is kind of like a World War II pilot. He just like nothing seemed to phase this guy. And I said, really? And he says, yeah. He says, and my co-pilot, young guy, he says, there's a beaver pond down there. And so
Wow.
they landed this thing full of guys with a dead stick that into a beaver pond in the bush country on northern Ontario.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which wasn't too far. They were following the railway tracks, and it wasn't very far from the railway tracks. And I said, like, did you crash? He said, well, no. Like we landed, went across the pond and up onto the bank. And I managed to miss it. And then they flew
Good Lord.
Just another day in the life of a bush pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Exactly. That reminded me of that story.
Good Lord.
Network time killers. So okay. So you're just ever since a kid, you're just, but you don't have your pilot's license yet. But you're thinking about it.
No. I'd love to get it. I mean, I've done nothing as far as going to get it. I haven't started anything, but I've always thought it'd be a very cool thing to do. I've always really wanted to fly helicopters, but that's a whole different level.
Yeah.
So maybe someday. But
one of us here has his pilot's license. Guess who it is?
isn't it the one that's always making the scratching noises?
Yeah.
Hot dog, we have a wiener.
Yeah. The scratcher.
Yeah. Can you imagine
Scott the Scratcher?
Can you imagine you'd be flying along with this guy in his plane, and he turns, he says, "Have you ever been to the rodeo, Billy?"
How about let's go into the rodeo? I'm actually a good pilot.
Are you?
Yeah, I am.
I mean, yesterday I found out you're an artist.
Yep.
That actually-
I'm not an artist. I'm just I draw a lot of pictures.
Okay.
That's art.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
art.
I guess it is, but
I would say model
I don't-
railroading's art.
Yeah, well, model railroading is
Well,
very
it is an art.
model railroading is very much an art form. I think
it is an art form.
it is an art
Well,
form.
that's why Frank Ellison wrote those articles called "The Art of Model Railroading."
Yeah, well, look at Lance Min. Look at Lance Mindheim.
Lance Mindheim, he wrote the book "Model Railroading as an Art Form."
Yeah, we got to get him back
Something
on.
along the lines of that title. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, it that's one of the things. I think it's going to over the next decade or two go from being model railroading to just another form of expressionist art, really. I mean, and then on top of that, you get to run trains through it.
Yeah, that's the cool part.
Yeah. I mean, you have got to, Mike, you have got to make a connection with Scott and see his layout next time you're in near Greenville.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah, he will.
Where in relation to Greenville is the Smoky Mountain? Like how far? Where do you stay when you're at the Great Smoky Mountain Railroad?
I usually fly into Asheville,
Which
North
is
Carolina.
only about 30 minutes from my house. Well, 40 minutes.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah. And
Usually fly in there and sometimes stay in Asheville. Usually stay in Bryson City if I can, or somewhere really close. That's where the offices for the railroad are.
okay.
He probably stays at the casino.
I actually never have. I've been to the casino, but I've never stayed there.
Okay. Well, there's a Holiday Inn Express across the street.
There is, yep.
Yep.
Wow, they have the Polar Express excursion.
They
Did it have a polar bear with it?
Yeah. Yeah, but the pictures look very similar to what the Coca-Cola ads did. Well, they do. That's how I got all screwed up with that. Rafting.
We'll give you a pass this time.
Yeah, rail and trail. How much would it cost to rent a train, have a charter on one of those trains?
That's a good question. I could probably get the pricing for that if you wanted.
Yeah,
because we're going to need that.
Yeah.
And it's Scottapalooza is in 2025. You should make a point of coming to that.
Yeah, you could be a big part of it.
Scottapalooza?
Yeah.
Scottapalooza.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
So here's what happened. Several years ago, we started having barbecue, very loose barbecue, and we had it at Rochelle, Illinois.
Sure.
And we had it for a couple of years. And then we decided we were going to have Tom Stock, which is one of our regular contributors, is Tom Jacobs, a.k.a. the Queso Cowboy, which is the greatest name in all of AML Nation.
Indeed.
Without a doubt.
Usually when he's on the show, he's loading up on queso. He's addicted to queso.
Yeah.
He's
But it's not a bad thing.
No, not necessarily. And so anyways, we had Tom Stock 2020 in 2022. That's a long story.
Yeah. Well, he knows why.
Well, we never told him, so how could he possibly?
Well, he could figure it out.
I guess so.
Pretty much shut the world down.
Yeah, it's still a long story though, no matter how you cut
Yeah, exactly.
it. We were going to have a rodeo and everything, but
Yeah. I really
Okay,
like
exciting.
rodeos.
Yeah, I could tell.
so then now this year we're going back to Rochelle. We're calling it back to our roots, just to have our loosey goosey barbecue. And like at Tom Stock, we had 50, 60 people come. At our barbecues, we usually have 30 or 40. And these are all fans of the AML Nation, right? These are all people that have found each other through the podcast.
Right.
Well, then in 2024, we're going back to Tom Stock 2 because we're going to do it again. Because we rented on the, what's it called? What's that railroad?
The Reading and Blue Mountain Northern.
Yeah, Reading and Blue Mountain Northern. We rented their RDs.
Oh, no, the Blue Mountain and Reading Northern.
The Blue Mountain and Reading Northern. Is it? I thought it was the Reading Northern or something. Reading and Northern. What is it called, Scott?
I don't remember.
No.
Reading, Blue Mountain, and Northern.
All right. Anyways, we rented their RDC and had a day-long excursion on their RDC, which was just great fun. But then in 2025, we have discovered that Scott, who thought he was the only model railroader within 100 miles of Greenville, South Carolina, it turns out there's all kinds of model railroads. There's the Great Smoky Mountain Railroad. There's all kinds of stuff to do. So in 2025, we're having Scottapalooza.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
It will be.
So I highly recommend you come for that. The only snag we've got so far is we haven't told his wife.
That's it's not really a snag, it's more like a problem.
But the great
She'll be fine and dandy.
Would it help if we took up a collection to send her out of town for the weekend?
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that. That's a good idea.
But the great thing about going to Scott's house is they always have a giant plate of bacon in the kitchen out on the counter.
You will have plenty of bacon.
Yeah, plenty of bacon. There'll be
Sounds like you can't go wrong.
Yeah,
No,
you
you
guys absolutely have to hook up. You would have a ball visiting his layout.
Yeah. Yeah, my latest visitor just left.
I was going to
today.
say, and Nick Santos is probably going to be there.
Yeah, he'll be here. He's headed up to Doc's house today.
Well, yeah. I think we've covered it all. Have we covered it all? Is there anything we didn't talk about, Mike, that you feel like we should talk about?
Oh man, I feel like we've talked about a lot.
We have talked about a lot.
I've talked about a lot. Yes.
We discovered about a park, the park that Ted Rita Hesston Steam.
Oh
park.
yeah,
We discovered that. I was been versed about the American Heritage Railways. Yeah.
Talked about locomotives. We talked
Locomotives.
about model railroads, lighting.
Yeah, lighting, model railroad. Your model railroad is fantastic.
Yeah.
We highly recommend that people go check out the video
Thank you.
on YouTube, and your Facebook is good. What's the name of your Facebook page?
It is the easiest way to find it is it's if you type in WPYR 1983.
WPYR 1983.
Yep, but it's the White Pass and Yukon route NHON 3 is the full page.
WPNR. Would you say?
WPYR
WPYR. YR.
1983.
19. This better work, buddy. All right.
I'm looking at it right now just to make sure I'm not crazy.
It did
So,
work. It did work.
There you go.
There it is. And it's the White Pass and Yukon route in HON 3, British Columbia and Alaska, 1983. Blah, blah. We prefer really long names for people's Facebook pages.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Is that sufficiently long or?
Yeah.
That might be one of the longest because Chris
geez.
Atkins is pretty long. Quesos is long. Scott's long. Chris Adams has a fairly long one. So
Yeah,
you're
in the family.
You're in the
Right up
family,
there.
but you might be the longest one.
Oh, jeez.
You're
I don't know if that's a good thing on that competition.
Locomotive 81. I'm looking at the photo of it here on your layout. Look, it was only recently finished, wasn't it?
I finished that model probably almost 2 years ago,
Okay.
actually. But it was there was an article I wrote for the Narrow Gauge Gazette about it, so I tried to refrain from posting pictures until it got published.
Ah,
I try to let them, have the first pictures.
And it was built. So you built this locomotive starting with an Australian Queensland Railways 42-inch gauge model.
Yeah,
Man,
isn't that wild?
Yeah, you must have had to do an awful lot of work to it.
That is a beautiful job, isn't it?
It sure is.
It is, indeed is.
How much?
Amazing.
When you travel, do you take any modeling supplies, or you just pretty much do it?
I usually don't. Every now and again I have, but I feel like usually if I'm traveling, it's kind of crazy busy. If I'm on the road with a show or something, we don't usually have too much time. So I find that I spend more time carting stuff around than I do actually working on it. But I do always try to, if I know I'm going to be on the road for a while, I try to plan projects where like I can maybe work on some drawings of a model that I'm going to build, or, I'll work on magazine articles or something like that. So stuff that I can do on the computer that relates back to the modeling.
Right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
How many articles do you think you've had published now?
I think it's about 10 maybe.
Okay. That's a fun thing to do too, eh?
It is. Yeah. I like it.
What a journey. I'm exhausted. I am. We've gone, and now I feel like a fool because I was talking about the bear. I thought that was hilarious.
Don't worry about it. It's no different than the rodeo.
Maybe you could work the polar bear in with the rodeo. That'd be
there you go.
Yeah.
What if you had like a polar bear as the rodeo clown?
That's even better.
Yeah. A polar bear, a rodeo clown, and a conductor walk into a bar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to know.
And the bartender says, "What is this? Some kind of a joke?"
Yeah.
I'll ask if it's an AML Nation podcast.
Yeah, there you go. So, are you going to tell your parent? Who are you going to tell about this when your episodes are published?
Oh, that's a great question. Maybe I'll put it on the Facebook page.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. You're not going to tell your mom and dad?
I'll probably tell them too.
Okay.
They'll like to listen to it.
Absolutely. They want to listen to, they'll want to listen to you anyways.
Right.
Okay. So remember, we're coming to the end. It's been our 3-part 47. No, what is it? This is part 4 of our 47-part trilogy with Mike May. He's going to be coming back on the show regularly to give us updates about. He's now our man on the Durango and Silverton. We now have an inside man on the Durango.
Top man in Durango.
Yeah, he's our top man in Durango. Well, we better not. We don't want to kick George. George feels pretty.
Well, George is our top goalie in Durango.
Yeah, George
That's
is.
true.
Yeah, George is our top goalie in Durango. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And Scott and I are going to come out and bum a ride in the cab.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Should. Let me know when.
I will. Don't worry. You'll know because I'll be pounding on your door. Let me in.
Right.
Where's the best place to eat in Durango?
Oh man, Durango. I don't know if it's actually true, but they always say that we have more restaurants per capita than San Francisco. So there's definitely some truth to the fact that there is no shortage of good places to eat here.
Oh yeah, where's your favorite place to go? Where's your one go-to place?
Gosh, if I had to pick one off the top of my head, Carver's Brewing Company.
Okay.
Love Carver's.
Love Carver's.
Been going there for many, many years.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
So you know some of the staff, they recognize you?
They do.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, right? Being a regular. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Sometimes you got to wonder when you walk into a bar and they know you. Like,
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but
Norm.
yeah, exactly. But it's a little bit like Cheers, right? You know, you want to have a place,
there you go.
I frequent Tony's Pizzeria in DeLand, Florida so much that Maria, my waitress, brings over my drink before I sit down. When I sit down, the drink is already coming. She already knows.
It's on its way.
It's on its way. Which actually,
I do love that.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah, I do the same. Yeah.
All right. So, when's the next time? If I might ask you, Mike, when's the next? What's the next Rapido item you're going to purchase?
Well, these 44 tonners I keep hearing about from this podcast.
Yeah,
I might need one.
You might have to do a little surgery on her to make her 3-foot gauge or 42-inch gauge, and away you go.
That's true. You know, the other Rapido product that I actually kind of really want too is the F40 PHM -2.
Oh, those are nice.
Because growing up in Chicago, I mean, I saw those things go by the house all the time.
Yeah.
So that is one of their. You know, if they would get into narrow gauge, it might change some things for me. But sometimes you can't. You got to stray away from what you actually model, right?
Yeah.
The F40,
and then again, they've got this whole line of Great Northern boxcars coming out soon that are sweet.
Yeah, man. I should have. Well, okay, there it is. It's on the Metra. All right, F40 PHM.
They're kind of weird engines, but they're pretty cool. And
yeah, they're pretty cool.
Growing up next to them.
That's something that always fascinates me. Like when you're in like Napier or the suburbs of Chicago, these trains flying through these highly urbanized areas, and there's some grade crossings and stuff, and then you're thinking, man, how many times do they end up whacking a car?
Yeah,
because they're moving. They are motoring through there. The express trains. They are like going like crazy. You've never been, Scott, you've never been with us to Rochelle, have you?
No, I'm excited.
Yeah, you should be. All right. So if you're desperate for an F40 PHM-2, Rapido Trains is the place to go to. Or if you're just looking for really cool model railroad stuff, Rapido Trains is the place to go to. Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Wow, we're getting better and better at this. We had a couple of near misses at the start of the show, but we're getting better.
Yeah, I took a couple pictures of everything we got there.
Rapidotrains.com. Tell them Lionel sent you. That may or may not be helpful. What's the hardest locomotive you've ever had to get? The hardest locomotive to get into?
To get into?
Yeah, like, I mean, some of them are, like even this F40PH, it's like, there's a lot of steps and it doesn't look like it's like particularly easy.
Yeah, that's, I guess it's kind of an odd question.
Have any of the, so let me ask you, have any of the questions
difficult to get into?
Well, have any of the questions not been odd?
Well, that's true too.
All except the rodeo.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah.
I guess we've got this little.
No, the rodeo was an odd question. You're right. When you get there, Scott, the rodeo was an odd question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We cut you off.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I was just going to say this little center cab engine we have, because the doors are so freaking small on it. If you're trying to wear a backpack and walk in, that usually doesn't work very well.
See, so there you go. So that's
a little hard to get
It
into.
wasn't that bad of a question. What locomotives have you disliked operating the most out of all the locomotives you've ever been?
Oh. Gosh, I don't know that there's a particular class that I've disliked. There's certainly been bad ones of any particular class.
Right, ones that just didn't run very well.
Yeah, it's like, oh gosh, that number again.
Right.
I couldn't even tell you. I mean, so many of them, especially like thinking back to Amtrak. There's so many locomotives, but
yeah. So how many steam locomotives are actually in service at Durango right now?
Well, there's 8 that are part of the operating fleet.
Okay.
But they're always, I can't think of a time when there's been more than 6 that are actually in service.
Right.
At any given moment, because there's always something that's down for a rebuild. Like right now, I think we only have 2 that are in service, but it's the off season, so
right, yeah.
It's when a lot of the heavy maintenance gets done.
How many guys would be in the maintenance department?
There's about 20 in the roundhouse.
Yeah, man, I bet those keeps those guys hopping.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've covered it all.
That was the last thing to cover.
Well, yeah, I was just kind of filling in. I'm trying to ease you out of the experience.
Right.
It's been 2 long months for you, so now I'm trying to just ease.
True.
Yeah, we can't cut you off cold turkey.
Yeah.
Right. We can't
Don't want
that.
The door. Yeah.
Yeah. You'd be having the shakes for a week.
Right.
Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes, our email address. We've mentioned that we're going to have Mike back, so please send us any questions or comments you have for him. Send them to our email, which is modlerslife@gmail.com. That's modlers with 1 L, modlerslife@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's like 1 L like Silverton, not 2 L's like Greenville.
There you go.
You catch that, Scott?
I did.
That was pretty good.
Or 3 L's like Leadville.
What was that? 3 L's what? Like Leadville?
3 L's like Leadville.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's good.
And if you didn't catch that, Mike, if you didn't catch that address, if you just go to our website, amodelerslife.com, scroll down a little bit and click on the picture of the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state, you just click on that picture and boom, the email comes up and you're ready to rock and roll. The address is already there, and all you got to do is put in the subject line and your text, and you're ready to go. And don't forget, I want you to send me like 4 or 5 good pictures of you around locomotives and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, because I asked you that once, and you've already blown me off. So
you did. So let me write that down.
Yeah, write that down.
Now I've got a note.
Now you got a note. Yeah, and send me pictures.
Handy.
And send me pictures of the rodeo too.
I will. Yeah.
Or at least where it used to be.
Exactly.
Okay, we're gonna just we might need elevator music here. American Heritage. There we go. Here, American Heritage Railways. Boom. Space. Rodeo. Images. Let's see if anything comes up. Nada. There are no images from the rodeo. There's nothing.
It's all about that rodeo.
Yeah. Well, I just thought that'd be interesting to see if there were pictures.
There's pictures.
Okay. Well, send me one, smart guy.
I will.
But
There's a whole pile of them.
where are you seeing them? I'm not. Oh, there I found.
There's a whole pile. There's a bunch of posters.
Well, they were doing it. They were doing it in. So the rodeo was in 2020.
You think?
Wow. And yeah, send me one of those
That
pictures.
was a dumb question.
And yeah,
But the rodeo was in 2020.
And mine aren't.
No.
Yeah.
No, there, polar boy.
And Mike, if you like this podcast on the free channel, which is sponsored by Rapido Trains,
If it's L, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
Your fast track model road is fun.
There it is.
if you like this podcast and you want twice as much podcasting every week, on our website at modelerslife.com, if you click on the Patreon link, the link that says Patreon, it'll take you to the page, and just for a few cents a day, you can have twice as much AML podcasts every week. So and on that channel, we call that channel.
That's either Mike whipping out the eraser because he made a mistake on his notes, or Scott was sanding away.
Why'd you stop talking?
You go to our Patreon channel and you'll get twice as.
Will you stop that?
You'll get twice as much. You know what? Forget it. It's not that good.
Yeah. Hey, but what else? What else can we tell them?
Have you ever wanted Mike? Have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
I always have.
Okay. Well, if you go to yeah, okay. Well, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, and you scroll across the navigation bar to other, and click on other. We're on it'll drop down menu. It'll say AML Nation, and you click on that, and boom, we are in a wonderland of. There is a wonderland of merchandise: hats, hoodies, T-shirts, mugs, and in there you'll find a T-shirt with a banana on it. Hot dog.
Banana. Did you get a banana T-shirt?
Yeah, we should make a banana one too. I don't know why.
Rumors of a banana shirt, and you keep mentioning it.
Yeah,
people are going to want that now. You know.
I know.
Yeah.
I was listening to a Riley Triggs interview from Springfield today, so that's why I had bananas on the brain.
Oh.
I think that's it. I think we've covered it all. And also, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, you go in there and to shop for train stuff. There is a plethora of Rapido Trains cars and locomotives in there.
Yeah.
All kinds of Rapido Train stuff there at Midwest Model Railroad.
If it's L, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
We love Rapido Trains because they're our sponsor. There are guys and gals.
There are fast track to model roading fun.
Exactly. That's it. We're running. We've this show is getting long in the tooth. Are you ready, Mike?
I think I'm ready.
Okay. So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10. No, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong ending, isn't it?
I don't know that
I
ending.
think we're on to you.
Yeah, I screwed that up too.
No.
I was
something about like Happy Rails.
Yeah, I know. I screwed it. I screwed it up. You don't have to go beat me to death.
This will all be edited out, though, right?
No, it won't.
Okay.
Yeah, it will. I was at Disney World. I was at Disney World all day, so that's my problem. I was at the Epcot. I was at the Epcot Center.
Oh wow.
Have you ever done, what's it called? American, it's at the end, it's the farthest thing away at Epcot Center. What's it called? American Heritage or something? Anyways, it's
Barbecue.
No. It's one of the things you go into. It's a show, but it's done with all the animated stuff, and it seems very much, there's stuff there where you can just see that Walt Disney was a model railroader.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's where I was all day. So now, are you ready, Mike?
Happy rails to you.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
going to
not-
be the right setup for this one.
Well, yeah, you'll know it when
When it gets the right script, you'll know.
Yeah, okay.
The key. We need you to say happy rails to you. Now I sound like Foster Brooks. We need you to. We need you to say happy rails to you at the appropriate moment. Now the key is there's no singing, there's no dancing, there's no kind of interpretation. Like, don't do anything. Like, don't try to add in some sort of flavor to it like you would when you got the. Is there like a polar? Are there like Polar Express dancers?
There are.
Are there really?
You haven't seen the movie. You need to watch the movie, Lionel.
There's actual dancers in the Polar.
They go flipping through the car. Yeah, it's
Wow.
unbelievable.
We cast actual dancers.
Wow. Maybe I should get it. Can you find me a bit part in the Polar Express?
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, we'll find something.
You be the polar bear.
Well, Mike, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
can you say it with a little bit more enthusiasm?
I thought you wanted me to just say it.
Well, yeah, but like belt it out there. Like, there's no business like show business, that kind of.
That would be singing and dancing and
That would be
interpretation.
it seems
that's
like
true. All right. Well, I'll edit it. I'll buff it up in the studio. and I'll buff it up in post.
There you go.
That's showbiz talk for you.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Off Creek Pass, way up on the Great Divide, trucking on down the other side.
Well, we commenced a trucking, them hens commenced a clucking. That Earl took out a match, scratched his pants, lit up the unused half of a dollar cigar, took a puff, and said, "Mike, this pretty up here." I said, "Earl, this hill can spill us. You better slow down, you're gonna kill us. Just one mistake, and it's the pearly gates for the 85 crates of USDA-approved cluckers. You want to hit second?"
Off Creek Pass, way up on the Great Divide, trucking on down the other side.
Well, Earl grabbed onto the shifter and he stabbed her into fifth gear, and then the chromium-plated, fully illuminated, genuine accessory shift knob come right off in his hand. I said, "You want to screw that thing back on, Earl?" He was trying to thread it on there when the fire fell off of his cigar, dropped on down, started rolling around, lit the cuff of Earl's pants, burned a hole in his sock. Yeah, sort of set it right on fire. I looked on out of the window and I started counting phone poles going by at the rate of 4 to the 7th power. I put 2 and 2 together, added 12, carried 5, and come up with 22,000 telephone poles an hour.